Hey Brock, this is Keaton Everett with ABC, going over your pitching video from camp. We go through and talk a little bit about your mechanics and break them down at a couple spots and sort of go over a few things. But basically you have a real good setup, you have a real good start to your mechanics, and you have a really good sort of understanding of everything, and sort of have a pretty good idea of your mechanics, right? There's a few things that we can kind of work on as you get older, get a little bit stronger. With your lower half, that's going to help you get a little bit more velocity, get a little bit more power, and you can finish a little bit better. So we'll go through and sort of stop frame by frame and talk a little bit about everything. All right. So right off the bat, just make sure. I know there's a guy filming you and everything, but just make sure you get in the habit of always looking down the hill on that catcher. Right. Eyes are always on that catcher. All right. So initially we look at head over that back foot. All right, and then what we look for is balance through that initial leg lift. All right, a lot of times young kids like you don't have that balance and that posture, and what you see is you're doing a really good job. A lot of times you'll see guys get outside the box, you see the hips start moving. All right, you have a really good start right here. All right, this is a really solid position. So right at that height of that leg kick, which is right here, what we want to try to see are hips to go first and lead down the mound. We're going to want to see our hands break, and then all this foot's going to do is just kind of fall behind. But the biggest thing is what these hips are doing, is we want them to lead down the mound and lead first. All right. So as we start clicking forward, I'm going to draw a box around your hips here. So what you can see is, you can see a little bit, those hips start to go. You can see the hands start to break. All right. So you initially got a really good start to everything. All right. So at this point, you can start to see that foot getting outside your hip. All right, you can see it get outside your hip about right here. So one thing to change that will help you is to just think more hips leading, and don't get in that habit of getting that foot out and kicking a little bit. All right, so at this spot here, it might be getting pretty close to your hips, but the hips are still closed and leading down the mound. All right, so you're just getting out, kicking out a little bit, and all that does is that kind of loses a little bit of that backside power. And you can see how your glove's going to get out front a little bit too. So basically your glove kind of has a tendency to follow your foot, and so it's getting out there a little bit too early, and what that's going to cause you is to kind of pop that left side open a little bit early. So, and we'll kind of go through there. As you can see how here your arm's basically extended, and it stays extended, flips over, and now that left side pops open early. All right, so that's something that you can kind of fix, is just staying closed a little bit longer and never letting that elbow lock out. All right, so at this point here, you kind of see, maybe your glove's more right here. You just don't want to ever get that joint locked out, and get those arms raised up high. All right, one thing that I'm seeing is that could cause a little bit of problems with your arm and your shoulders, again, is you can see how straight arm back here, straight arm here before that foot strike, and you can see that this arm is starting to get up and kind of rotate early before that foot hits the ground. All right, so you can see how it's kind of everything's straight, and then all of a sudden you kind of bring everything in and kind of cringe in, and what we want to try to see is sort of this arm starting a little bit later. So back here to this start, drop your hands a little bit lower, all right, and then get that ball and just try not to be so quick with it to extension. All right, we want it to be quick out of the glove, but we don't want to get it locked out. All right, so just kind of think about your elbow sort of staying, it can get out pretty straight, but we don't ever want to lock it out. All right, because then that's just going to lead to that lockout, and then that sort of that initial turn. All right. Another thing too is I want you to watch is your glove. All right. You can see how all of a sudden it pops up here. We don't want to see that turn out until our front foot is landed and we're starting to rotate our hip forward. So you can see it pops out and that foot's still up off the ground. So everything's starting to rotate way too early. All right. And again, it's tough when you're younger. As you get older, it's going to be a lot easier. But at this point here at our foot strike, so once that front foot first hits the ground, we're going to want to still be in our back leg. All right, what we wanted this to look like, it's a pretty good back leg here, but this front leg is we want to try to see it out behind our ankle a little bit. You can see your knees kind of right over your ankle. All right, and then at this point, your hips are starting to turn, which is good, but we don't want our upper body to start turning. So now our upper body, our glove's going to be out here. It's still, that elbow still hasn't turned yet. All right. Remember how I was kind of talking about how your glove was turning early? This thing here, it's already up. We don't want that glove to get above that elbow until we've already landed and we're starting to come forward early. So, all right, so you're just popping that left side open a little bit early, and then that's just causing a little bit of leaking, and that's going to cause a lot of problems as you get a little bit older. When you get a little bit stronger, you can throw that ball a little bit harder. So you just kind of have a little bit of timing. We just need to work on not getting that arm so locked out, and then staying through that back side a little bit more and keeping that front shoulder closed, because you got a really good lower half. If we're just looking at just that, everything's pretty good. All right, except for that sort of that pop out that we're doing, but everything else is pretty good through your foot strike, through release and everything. All right, so what this front side leaking out does is you're going to see is we're going to go through our release point, and you're releasing the ball right here. All right, head's here, your back foot's starting to come off the ground. All right, at this point, a nice, strong, powerful position is we're staying all the way through our back leg, creating more angle, using more core, using more back. And now our head's down over our front foot somewhere, all right? And now we're releasing that ball a lot closer to the plate, all right? So that's we're just, to maximize that power and velocity, is we've got to stay through that back leg a lot longer. So then we're, through our release point, our leg's not collapsing right here. It's getting extended all the way through, all right? And again, once you get older and stronger, it'll get a lot easier. But basically, if we can kind of work on it and look at it now, it's going to be a lot easier when you get there. So again, you got sort of a pretty good foundation and everything. Now it's just a matter of not getting so quick with that upper body locked out, and keeping that front side closed a little bit longer. And then that will get you in a little bit better position. I saw one more thing I want to take a look at. And you can see how through that release point, is you're coming through releasing, you can see that glove's popping out, which isn't too bad. But through that finish, as you can see, this foot just kind of pivot on itself, and you end almost sideways. All right. What we want to try to get is that direction, and that power and everything is directed. Everything's going straight through that catcher. So our finish isn't going to be so much kind of pivoting on that leg. You're still going to have a little bit of momentum going towards the left, or the first base side, but that little pivot is just sort of that early leak with that left side. All right. So again, that's just something to sort of pay attention to, but just work on keeping that left shoulder closed, not letting that glove get above your elbow before that front foot hits the ground. And it's something that you need to drill out and get going on just getting that muscle memory down. But your initial setup, lower half's looking pretty good. So hopefully you're going to have a great season this year. Thanks again for making it out to camp. Hopefully you had a great time, and we look forward to seeing you again with ABC.